All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast. As always, Bo and Brant coming at you as part of the Fantasy Holics. Today we're going to cover the NFC North. We're remote. Got a lot going on right now, but we want to make sure we keep pumping these out to you guys. Keep getting you guys ready for these drafts. As we talk about these teams here and we're breaking down these divisions and everything, I do want to say that this isn't just for dynasty leagues. Like, yes, we are, mainly directed towards dynasty. But as we talk about these players, a lot can also be said for their redraft coming into this upcoming year, because that's really where we're taking a lot of our look ahead is how the next year is going to end up shaping up for a lot of them.
Yeah, of course, Brant, you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the reasons why we're off of certain players or on to certain other ones and dynasty startups has a lot to do with what their immediate impact look like. So this year, so obviously, with that being said, if there's a player that we're extremely high on because his outlook's great for this year, then obviously that's going to bode well for redraft as well.
Absolutely. Well, I say we jump straight into here and get these names out there, get it kicking. Do you want to kick off, or do you want me to kick it off with the champs like we have been?
Yeah, let's kick it off with the champs like we have been.
So I got the Green Bay Packers there in the NFC North. And really to find a bust with this team is actually extremely hard. And the fact is all their ADPs have gone so low because Adams has left. So Aaron Jones has dropped an ADP. Dylan's dropping an ADP. Well, Dylan's probably right where he should be, but we'll talk about that one here in a minute. And so I went with Rodgers. That was really the only one that I could actually really pinpoint as a bust. And he's coming off back-to-back MVP seasons. He's losing his best weapon. He has no real chemistry with a whole lot. I mean, he doesn't have a massive chemistry with his weapons that he has now. Yes, he does have a little chemistry with Lazard, Tanyan, and I just saw something. Both Tanyan and Watson are both starting on the PUP list for camp, which is going to put them a step behind and actually made me retract some of my research here. But yeah, Rodgers really, I mean, he finished in the top 10 last year as a quarterback, and I don't know if he can do that again this year without as many weapons as he had last year and without Devontae Adams. That is the biggest thing. That's really the only reason he's a bust. I mean, he has a great ADP position. His age in Dynasty is another reason I claim him as a bust, because he is up there in age. And always then during the offseason, you never know what you're going to get with Rodgers either. Some days it's, I don't want to play no more, I'm going to do Jeopardy. And some days is, all right, I'm ready to play again. So you just never know what you get with him.
Listen, I want to say that I think he's going to come into camp and into this season like a dangerous man. I don't know if you saw his fit from reporting day where he showed up to camp looking like Nicolas Cage from Con Air. He's ready to go. He's ready to go. He had the wife beater on, the long hair, the luscious locks flowing. He's ready to go. Back-to-back MVP, like you said. But yeah, Brant, I'm going to give you a little bit of guff here. I think you took the easy way out on this one. The man's definitely going to have a coming part without the best wide receiver in football to catch passes from him. I don't expect Alan Lazard to become the next greatest thing for a fantasy as a wide receiver. It's not going to be the same. It's just not.
Absolutely. And that's going to roll me straight into my sleeper is Alan Lazard. It was originally Tanyan until I realized he's starting on the PUP. I'm sorry, you start on the PUP. You're not sure if you're ready for week one. You don't get that chance to build a little better chemistry with Rodgers. I just don't. I can't put you in anything here. You're starting out on the PUP. You're missing all that time with him. I understand Rodgers probably isn't going to play in any preseason games, but we've seen it year after year after year. He does participate in those drills with his wideouts and everything else. That's the same thing that really scares me about Watson coming into this year too, is not participating during training camp. So I have Alan Lazard. He's like I said, he's out there during training camp, and he's the most trusted wide receiver that Rodgers has. Wide receiver, I have to say, that Rodgers has out there right now. So Lazard at his ADP is a great value. I mean, you're getting him. Apparently, my computer wanted to go to sleep on me. You're getting him late in drafts. So, I mean, he's a guy that I'm willing to throw a dart at and go ahead and add him as, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range, 127th player off the board, so after the 10th round. So, absolutely a guy that I'm willing to take a chance on.
Yeah, Brant, it's interesting, too, that you bring up the camp side of things. And, I know a lot of people are probably listening to you talk about how, Rodgers isn't out there. So what's the big deal if these guys don't play preseason? Well, the big deal is for a guy like Christian Watson coming out of a small school is, you got to get used to that NFL game speed. And even if you're going against second string NFL corners, that's better than the corners you faced in most of your college career, right? And so we see these wide receivers get acclimated with the NFL game speed, playing in the preseason. You get rid of that alligator arm syndrome where these guys are scared to reach out and make catches because they're scared of getting hit. It always takes that first hit before it's like, okay, here we are. This is what it is. We're back to it. Whatever. And so for a rookie wide receiver to come in and not get that opportunity to be in training camp and not participate in preseason games, it's definitely going to put Christian Watson behind the 8 ball. I do love Allen Lazard this year. I just still don't think Allen Lazard's enough to crack the top 30.
Absolutely. So that's going to roll me into my studs and my breakouts. They're kind of both together. I really feel like I took the easy coward way out with Green Bay because it was really hard after actually sitting down and looking at their ADPs. It was really hard to put anybody in a bad position or even in a good position. So with the stud, I'm going with Aaron Jones. Pretty much the easiest way. This man is the most trusted weapon that Rodgers has coming back this year. You're going to see, I think, some of his carries you're going to see turn into even more targets this year. And he's being drafted as where did I have it? He's the running back 15 coming off the board right now. And even in the committee share time that he had with Dylan at the last 4 weeks of the season where they both played, 17 points, 16 points, and 16 points in PPR. And that's sharing the backfield with Dylan. And, I mean, he was seeing upwards right around 50% of the snaps. So, I mean, it's not like, he was out there dramatically more than him or anything else. He was out there, let's see, I'm pulling it up real fast, 45% on the first one, 63, 56, 41. 60-40 timeshare pretty much if you average that out. And that is definitely what I see coming into this year, and that brings me into my breakout. A.J. Dillon, last 4 weeks of the season, averaged 11 points in PPR. A.J. Dillon's going off later in the draft. This is a guy that almost averaging, like I said, he averaged 11 points, averaging 11 points. You almost can plug him into as an RB2. He may not be the sexiest thing being put there, but he looks like a very safe thing. And I see Dillon seeing a lot more goal line carries this year.
Yeah, that's one of the few backfields that if you get either one of the running backs in, you're gonna have a certain level of confidence each week plugging those guys into your lineup and knowing you're going to get points that'll help you win week in and week out. Obviously, with both of them being there, neither one of them is going to be a bell cow back for fantasy. I guess Aaron Jones kind of has been in the past, but I think that split keeps growing until it gets to about 50-50, like you alluded to. And I think because of that, I don't think Aaron Jones will stay in the top 5, but I think they're both going to be very, very serviceable. Obviously, with nobody else being there to catch passes in Green Bay, Aaron Jones could see his numbers of targets skyrocket with his carries come down, whereas A.J. Dillon could see those carries shoot up, and they could both, shock the world and be top 10 backs. It wouldn't surprise me all that tremendously much. I mean, I know when we did our running back rankings episode, you were much higher on Aaron Jones than I was, and that was your exact reasoning for it. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that backfield plays out and what kind of fantasy values it puts out.
So both of these guys finished in the top 24 last year. So both of these finished either as an RB1 or as an RB2. And that was as we slowly saw Dillon work his way more and more and more in. Now you're kicking Devontae Adams out. You're going to see both these guys on the field a lot together, I would assume.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty safe assumption.
So, if you want to roll into the Minnesota Vikings there, I'm really, really anxious to hear about them.
All right, perfect. I had my first player for Detroit pulled up, but we'll go ahead and switch gears here.
Oh, that's cool. You can go to Detroit.
No, I'm already on it now. So let's just get right into Minnesota, right? And so the obvious one for me, and the one to get out of the way with right off the jump, is the stud. And really, you could make the argument that you could go one of two positions here because for many years they've had a top end running back in Dalvin Cook, but I actually went with the 23-year-old Justin Jefferson here. And Justin Jefferson's 2 seasons in the league, he finished as wide receiver 6 in PPR formats and wide receiver 4 in PPR formats. And the interesting thing about both those finishes is he also finished as the wide receiver 6 in standard that year and the wide receiver 4 in standard that year. So it's very good production you're getting out of him here. Last year he saw 167 targets for 108 yards, 1,616 yards. 108 receptions out of targets there for 1,616 yards, averaging 9.68 yards per target. I mean, that's just an unreal stat. And then he came down with 10 touchdowns on top of that. Listen, I think the big reason why it's so easy for me to be in on Justin Jefferson is because I think the quarterback in Minnesota is slept on quite a bit too, which is why Kirk Cousins is my sleeper pick. Kirk Cousins is the type of guy that if you punt on the quarterback position in your drafts and you wait, you want to address those, your starting wide receivers, your starting running backs, your flexes, and a couple bench spots before you snag up a quarterback. Kirk Cousins is one of those guys that I'd absolutely be targeting in those spots. I mean, I know when we did the quarterback show not too long ago, Kirk Cousins was a guy that I talked about, Brant. And since 2015, he had his first 3 seasons. He was the backup to Robert Griffin, RG3 there in Washington. If you remember that, they were taken on that same draft. But since 2015, Kirk Cousins has quarterback finishes of quarterback 10, quarterback 5, quarterback 6, quarterback 13, quarterback 19, quarterback 11, and quarterback 11. So the last 2 years, he's been a quarterback 1 in 12-man leagues. And, Kirk Cousins is a guy that right now, if you wanted to pull him in a draft, you'd be aiming to get him in the roughly the 13th round. Yeah. Is where Kirk Cousins would be going, the 13th round. So you're telling me I can get a guy who's finishing as a quarterback 1, all right, in the 13th round. So that gives me plenty of time to address all my positionary picks. I can get ahead of that running back and wide receiver curve, maybe even grab my tight end early, and then get a quarterback late that at that point in time, in the 13th round, you're giving me a quarterback that's going to be a quarterback 1. And I don't have to spend any time thinking about that later. I can take a gamble on one of these other younger quarterbacks like a Zach Wilson or something later for something more flashy. Kirk Cousins is my sleeper. All right. We'll move right into my breakout. And Brant, I know this is a guy that's near and dear to your heart. That is Irv Smith, the tight end there in Minnesota. Brant, I know this is a name that had been floated to you a couple of times in dynasty leagues as a trade candidate for you, and you weren't completely sold on it, and I understand why. Last year he missed the entire season, and the year before that he only played 13 games. But the thing about it is Kyle Rudolph's no longer in town, right? Kyle Rudolph's gone with the Bucs now, which we'll get into that at a little bit later in the time, but. In his in 2020, when Irv Smith played, he had some really solid games. Week 9 against Detroit, he hung up 15 PPR points. Week 14 against Tampa Bay, he threw up 16 points. And in week 16 against New Orleans, week 16 against New Orleans, he threw up another 23 points. So the big thing, though, is in all 3 of those games, he had touchdowns. So it's safe to say he's touchdown dependent. But I think this is a guy that will be significantly targeted in the red zone this year if he stays healthy with Kirk Cousins. I know Adam Thielen is one of the most targeted wideouts the red zone. But I think Irv Smith's going to take a lot of that work this year. I mean, he's 6'2", 240 pounds, so he's got a big frame, and this is going to be a guy that when Kirk Cousins gets down there, Kirk Cousins is crafty. He finds a way to get the ball in the end zone. I look for Irv Smith to potentially benefit from that, where Adam Thielen drops off from it. So, Brant, with all that being said, do you want to take a stab to guess who my dud is in Minnesota?
I'm going to have to say it's Dalvin Cook.
It is not Dalvin Cook. It is that of Adam Thielen. And that's a guy – Adam Thielen's a guy that I've been very high on.
Yeah, that's why I didn't guess that one.
Right. It's a guy that I've tried to acquire in a lot of my dynasty leagues in the last few years. But at this point, he's 31 years of age, 6'2", 200 pounds, really, really a crafty wide receiver, the way he comes in and out of his slants. He hits those shifts, and he's there and he's gone real quick. Really crafty around the red zone. But last year he only played 13 games. 2020 he only played in 15 games. In 2019 he only played in 10 games. So we've got a little bit of an injury thing going on here. And his targets have decreased significantly since 2018. He had 153 in 2018. And then he only played in 10 games in 2019. But his targets were only 48. And then you go to 2020, where he played in 15 games, and he finished as the wide receiver 10 in PPR that year with just 108 targets, but he had 14 touchdowns. The touchdowns is what's kept Adam Thielen relevant in fantasy the last couple of years. And then if you go back to last year, where last year he still was a top 30 wide receiver, Brant, with 10 touchdowns. If you take away Adam Thielen's touchdowns last year, Adam Thielen's like a wide receiver 6. Okay, and I understand the touchdowns happen, so you can't really just take them away. But I think with Irv Smith being back, being healthy, you've got that similar running back situation in Minnesota that you do to Green Bay. With Alexander Madison hasn't emerged quite as heavily as A.J. Dillon has yet, but those guys are Alexander Madison is very serviceable, and Dalvin Cook's a stud. You've got Justin Jefferson. Somewhere something's got to give, and I expect that to come from Adam Thielen a little bit. And so Adam Thielen's my dud, and the real reason why, and I want to clarify this too before I let you take back over with the Chicago Bears, Brant, is that Adam Thielen is still being drafted in the back half of the 8th round or the first half of the 9th round. So he is still going very early in drafts right now. And the regression's coming. I mean, the touchdown regression's coming. If he had just 5 touchdowns last year, he'd still be well outside of your top 36 wide receivers. So there's my list for Minnesota, Brand, if you want to take us back over to Chicago.
Wow, I didn't realize Thielen's ADP was that high. Wow. But yeah, definitely. I see. There's really nothing to argue with what you got there. Thielen's one of those guys that really does scare me this year too, especially with all the reports coming out with Dalvin Cook lining up out there, helping out with the wide receivers and everything else. I understand, they're supposed to become a little more pass friendly there in Minnesota this year. But when it becomes pass friendly and you start talking about lining up the running back out there in bunch formations, that means Madison's in the backfield, so that gives you 2 more, another option out there too. Plus you're talking about Irv Smith being back and healthy. So I definitely could see there's no argument from any of those coming out off of my way. So I'll jump here into the Chicago Bears. This one here, I almost feel like I took maybe the easy way out. Again, I really, really wanted to slide somebody into this, a guy that I was extremely high on his rookie year. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go to my bust. My bust is Justin Fields. They had no help on the offensive line. This man's going to be running for his life. Until Chicago does something, you're going to see Justin Fields as Russell Wilson 2.0. And I'm sorry, I don't see how you can make that many plays when you don't have the weapons like Russell had. Russell had Doug Baldwin out there playing street football when Russell was out of the pocket. He had Lockett, who he had a beautiful chemistry with. And then he had DK, who could just normally bully most of the corners in the NFL to get himself open. You show me a weapon like any of those.
Jacoby Myers.
Huh?
Jacoby Myers.
Wrong team. We're talking
Or
about
N'Keal Harry, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
N'Keal Harry, sorry.
That was a guy I wanted to slide into my sleeper over here, but I just couldn't do it. I did like Harry coming out, but no. But yeah, no, I don't see any weapons on that team being able to do something like that to help Fields out that much. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Harry does, make it a little bit better for him. But my stud, real easy in Chicago, David Montgomery. The man has just been a workhorse back, and you really don't see that a whole lot, in the NFL anymore. You're seeing so many teams go to committee. Well, I'm sorry. Chicago's not 82% of snaps, 85, 95, 84, 70, 84. This man was out there for the majority of the game. And he finished his RB19 in PPR leagues last year. So, and that was only in 13 games, by the way. So he missed 4 games also due to injury. So this guy's going as the RB18 off the board in most drafts. And this guy is going to be the RB1 there in Chicago and the focal point to Chicago moving that football. And I really think that if they somehow, and I think they're going to have to get into the read option game with Monty and Fields, I think that opens it up even more for Monty to gain more. This guy's been one of the top 5 tackle breakers in the NFL too. So you give 2 options of running and he has less pressure on him to break as many tackles. I really think this guy is poised to be a stud again this year and a top 15 RB. And, I mean, like I said, you're getting him as RB18. If he's top 15, I'm absolutely in love with that as my RB2 coming off. My breakout is Darnell Mooney. Like I said, I wanted to get Harry in here. I just couldn't do it. Mooney's coming in. He's going to be the wide receiver 1. He has some chemistry with Fields already. I think that he will thrive with that, with Allen Robinson moving on. He finished as the wide receiver 23 actually last year in PPR leagues, and he's going as the 75th player off the board. This guy right here, he's poised to break out and be the best receiving weapon in Chicago this year. But that brings me to a guy that is in my sleeper that I really think could end up breaking out as the best receiving option also. And that's why I got both of these guys right here as my breakouts and sleepers. Cole Kmet. Normally a young quarterback's best friend. A guy that's going to be a safety blanket for Fields as he has to roll out of the pocket and everything else. And I really think that this offense is going to, and it makes me more comfortable with Kmet too, because I really think this offense is going to be a focal point of the tight end pass game and Montgomery run game. And I don't, and every once in a while, obviously seeing the dump offs to Montgomery is going to help him too and everything else. So I definitely think that's very, very high chance that Cole Kmet has a nice breakout year this year for him.
Sure. Cole Kmet's one that I'm really a big fan of there in Chicago. Somebody's going to benefit from those vacated targets of Allen Robinson. Darnell Mooney, I think last year was about where you're going to see him finish. And I'm all over Cole Kmet this year. That's been a player that I've went and picked up and a lot everywhere that I've had a chance. So let's get right on into Detroit, and I'm going to start this one very similarly to the way I started Minnesota, and that's with the stud, and it's none other than DeAndre Swift. Listen, right now, DeAndre Swift is he's at that point where his ADP is almost at his ceiling. Okay, he's being drafted as like the 7th player off the board right now, and in dynasty startup formats, and that's got a lot to do with his age and what his role is and what his workload should look like. And I know in the last 2 episodes, Brant, you and I have kind of beaten up on guys like this because they're kind of already at where their ceiling is. But in dynasty startups, if you're telling me I can draft DeAndre Swift at the 7th overall, which there's probably only a handful or maybe 2-3 running backs really that you could make the argument for in a dynasty startup to go in front of Swift. But this is a guy that very similar to Aaron Jones. He's gonna get a lot of receptions. He catches the ball very well out of the backfield. He also had his best running campaign last season, where he only managed 617 yards last year. But he's also only played in 13 games the last 2 years, so he's going to have to stay healthy. But if he stays healthy, I think this is a guy that you could see make a run at a top 3 running back this year. So if I'm getting him at 7, I'm not really that upset about that price point. Let's go ahead and go to my sleeper pick here, because this is one that I feel like a lot of people have, completely forgotten about or fallen off of. And again, for dynasty aspects, still extremely young, and that's DJ Chark. DJ Chark signed there with the Lions in free agency. And DJ Chark's only 25 years of age, and we're only a couple years removed from, well, I guess more than a couple at this point. 2019, he finished as a wide receiver 17, and then he's had a ton of injury-riddled seasons after that. And let's be honest, Jacksonville's offense really hasn't been anything to write home about the last couple of years anyway. But this is a guy that is coming in here in Detroit, and prior to this season, even going into last season, if DJ Chark would have been in Detroit, he would have been the most sought after player there behind DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, because last year you had guys like Tyrell Williams being drafted there because people were just looking for a piece of an offense where there may be that guy. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown emerged. But DJ Chark's a guy that I think, if he gets somewhere in the 90, even 80 to 100 targets, with the way he moves and as quick as he is, this is a guy that I think you could see break back into that top 36 wide receiver range, be a wide receiver 3 or even a flex play for you week in and week out. And, I think a lot of that has to do with Jared Goff as well. We've seen Jared Goff substantiate multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers in the past. And, you could make the argument that it could be Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, but Jameson Williams, to my knowledge, at least I haven't seen anything yet, Brant, correct me if I'm wrong, is not going to be ready for week 1. So, Jameson Williams missing time and then not getting that training camp aspect. This is going to be a guy that DJ Chark could step in and fill that role really nicely. So I do move that right on into my breakout player, and my breakout player is Jameson Williams. And again, easy way out grabbing the rookie here, but this guy, had he not had the injury going into the draft, this guy probably is in the conversation with wide receiver 1 in this class with Drake London for first player off the board, first wideout off the board. Detroit got him in the back half of that first round. I believe they traded back in with Minnesota to get him, if I'm not mistaken. But Jameson Williams was absolutely electric there at Alabama with Bryce Young and with John Mechie on the opposite side. Even when John Mechie missed time, Jameson Williams was absolutely a stud. He was electric in the college football playoff game. But this is a guy that coming in is going to, in my mind, have a very, very similar role to what Cooper Kupp did in Los Angeles. Coming out of the slot and moving around the formation, not just the slot, but I think he'll spend most of his time there. And this is a guy that I think is going to be very electric in that Detroit offense. So with my sleeper and my breakout both being pass catchers from Detroit, it's only natural that I have a pass catcher as my dud as well. And that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Listen, Amon-Ra St. Brown finished the season really well last year. He kind of broke onto the scene there, and the second half of the season when there was nobody else in town. Somebody had to do it. Amon-Ra St. Brown did it. Obviously, you could make the argument that he's got the chemistry with Jared Goff already, but he's being drafted right now inside of the 5th round. Okay. His ADP is the 66th player off the board. So again, in 12-man leagues, he's going just towards the end of that 5th round there. And this is a guy that last year he finished as wide receiver 21 in PPR formats. He did play 17 games, 90 receptions, 912 yards for 5 touchdowns. And again, that was in an offense that was desperate for a wide receiver to emerge. Okay, TJ Hawkinson missed time last year. They obviously didn't have DJ Chark. They obviously didn't have Jamison Williams. So this is just one to me that, again, natural pecking order is going to come in. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the victim of DJ Chark and Jamison Williams and potentially TJ Hawkinson staying healthy. So for me, I didn't struggle nearly as much with Detroit and Minnesota as you did with Green Bay and Chicago because, I felt like both spots, the studs were pretty obvious. And I just have strong opinions, I guess, on Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark. So those ones were pretty easy for me there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. St. Brown's a guy that I really like this year. As you know, I traded to go get him. I hope that he isn't a complete dud. I hope I can use him as my wide receiver 4 where I traded to go get him, or my flex 2 in our league. But yeah, absolutely. I think really Minnesota and Detroit were kind of almost cut and dry, and really this division's almost cut and dry with fantasy and the way it's playing out. I really think it's Green Bay takes a huge step back this year with missing Adams. I think it's Minnesota's division to lose. I really like the chances of Detroit and their complete offense to move forward. But yeah, really the NFC North is just an overall fun division that's almost cut and dry where it sits. It sits where it sits.
Yeah, I agree. This one almost reminded me of the NFC South for how easy it was to do and where your kind of fantasy value falls and where it doesn't.
Absolutely. Next week we'll be doing the AFC East, so that one may be a little more fun for us. We'll see how that one goes. But that's about all I got. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's all I got, Brant. Happy to be back from the Fatboyz being in vacation. One half of the Fatboyz being in vacation down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Happy to be back. Happy to be getting back into the research world here and podcasting with you, of course.
Absolutely. And as always,
stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.